On the morning of June 21st, 2023, Thomas Carey was discovered lying face down in the west corner of Greenfield Park, a small public space located in the heart of Hillsborough County, Florida. According to the police report filed that morning, a jogger named Ellen Whitaker was the first to notice the motionless figure among the park's meticulously kept shrubbery. It was just after 6 in the morning, a time usually marked by the early routine of dog walkers and fitness enthusiasts. Whitaker immediately contacted emergency services, making a call to Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office at 6:22. Emergency responders arrived within minutes, cordoning off the area before carefully approaching the scene. Thomas Carey, age 34, was identified by the driver's license found in his wallet, which was in the right pocket of his jeans. He wore a blue polo shirt, dark jeans, and a pair of worn sneakers. His wristwatch, a simple Casio, had stopped at 11:15 the previous night. The contents of his pockets included a set of keys, a crumpled grocery receipt marked June 20th, and a small, unopened pack of gum. Detective Alana Garza, a 10-year veteran of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, led the initial investigation. By 8 that morning, she spoke briefly to reporters from the Tampa Bay Times, stating only that Carey's death was being treated as suspicious, pending further investigation. Carey's body was transported to the Hillsborough County Medical Examiner's Office for autopsy, arriving at approximately 9:15. The initial examination noted no apparent signs of struggle or trauma on his body, but the absence of immediate, visible injuries did little to quell the growing questions surrounding his death. The autopsy, conducted later that day by Dr. Miriam Khalid, recorded the official time of death as between 10:30 and 11:30 the previous night. The cause of death, however, was less clear. The preliminary toxicology screen found traces of diazepam in Carey's bloodstream, a substance known for its sedative properties and often prescribed for anxiety. However, the levels detected were not deemed sufficient to be fatal. No alcohol or other drugs were present in his system. Thomas Carey was last seen by a neighbor, Hector Ramirez, at approximately 9:30 in the evening on June the 20th, walking down Willowcrest Avenue, a street located 2 blocks from his residence at 214 Maple Way, a modest, single-story home he had moved into 3 years prior. Ramirez, speaking to police later that day, described Carey as appearing normal, like he was running an errand, carrying a small grocery bag and nodding a quick greeting as they passed. Investigators initially focused on retracing Carey's movements on the night of his death. Surveillance footage obtained from a convenience store on Willowcrest Avenue showed Carey purchasing a pack of gum at 9:15, confirming Ramirez's account of his grocery errand. Later interviews with store employees did not suggest that Carey seemed distressed or accompanied by anyone. The footage, however, offered no further leads on where Carey went after leaving the store. Digging deeper into his background, detectives learned that Carey was employed as a software developer, known for his quiet demeanor and routine lifestyle. He lived alone, with no immediate family in the area, though he maintained regular contact with an older sister, Emily Carey, residing in Seattle, Washington. In a statement given via telephone to Detective Garza, Emily described her brother as reserved but reliable, and noted that they had spoken about his upcoming summer visit just 2 days before his death. The investigation initially appeared straightforward, but soon became mired in complexities. A search of Carey's home revealed no signs of forced entry or disturbance. His laptop, found on his living room table, revealed little beyond routine work emails and a series of bookmarked articles on gardening and local history. However, his cell phone, a device notably absent from the list of items found on his person in Greenfield Park, was missing. Detective Garza issued a public request for information on the missing cell phone, urging anyone who might have seen Carey that night or found the item to come forward. Despite this, the tip line received fewer than 10 calls in the first 48 hours, none of which provided substantial new information. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, facing limited leads, requested assistance from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in the days following Carey's death. Further complicating the matter, the local press began reporting on another incident that occurred within the same time frame of Carey's death. A break-in had been reported at a nearby residential property on Elm Street, less than a mile from where Carey's body was discovered. Though initially dismissed as unrelated, both the timing and proximity prompted detectives to review any potential connections between the two events. Despite the lack of definitive answers, the autopsy results and toxicology reports were released to the public 2 weeks later. The official cause of death was listed as undetermined, as neither foul play nor natural causes could be conclusively proven. The lack of physical evidence, coupled with the inconclusive forensic findings, led to the case being classified as a suspicious death rather than a homicide, a decision that drew criticism from the public and press alike. As summer continued, Thomas Carey's name became the subject of murmurs and speculation throughout Hillsborough County. With no new evidence forthcoming, the investigation stalled, leaving his family and the community with more questions than answers. Thomas Carey was a 35-year-old marketing consultant residing in the Riverview area of Hillsborough County, Florida. According to records obtained from his employer, Suncoast Digital Solutions, Carey was known for his punctuality and attention to detail in his professional life. On the evening of June 19, 2023, Carey attended a work function at the Rusty Anchor, a local bar and grill located on Harbor View Drive, approximately 7 miles from his home. Eyewitness accounts from his colleagues, provided to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, indicate that Carey left the event around 9:30 at night. He reportedly declined offers to share an Uber, stating that he preferred to walk home. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses along Harbor View Drive confirms his departure time and suggests he was wearing a navy blue jacket, khaki trousers, and brown loafers. Later that night, security cameras from the Greenfield Park entrance captured Carey passing through around 10:15 p.m. The footage shows him walking at a steady pace, seemingly alone. This sequence of events coincides with the last known sighting of Carey alive. Detective Alana Garza of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office later confirmed that a series of text messages were sent from Thomas Carey's phone between 9:45 and 10 p.m. The recipients included his sister, Emily Carey, and a close friend, Joel Fisher. In the messages, Carey discussed the work event, mentioning it was a decent way to end the week. However, according to the report filed by Detective Garza, there was no indication of distress or concern in these communications. In the days preceding his death, Carey had been in contact with Hector Ramirez, a real estate agent from Tampa. Carey had been in the market for a condominium closer to his workplace. Phone records obtained through a subpoena revealed their conversations focused primarily on property listings in the South Tampa area. However, no meetings were scheduled beyond a phone call on June 18, 2023, which lasted approximately 25 minutes. As part of the investigation, Detective Garza interviewed several of Carey's neighbors. One, a Mrs. Linda Harrington, residing 2 doors down on Elm Street, reported hearing what she described as strange thumping noises coming from Carey's residence in the early hours of June 20, 2023. Following standard procedure, her statement was documented and cross-referenced with the time window established for Carey's death. However, further inquiries revealed no additional witnesses or corroborating evidence regarding any disturbances at Carey's address. A search was conducted at Carey's residence on June 22, 2023, following the discovery of his body. According to the search warrant affidavit, there were no signs of forced entry or a struggle inside his apartment. Items typically associated with a break-in, such as broken locks or shattered glass, were absent. Among the personal effects discovered in Carey's apartment were a takeout receipt from the Rusty Anchor dated June 19, 2023, and a copy of William Faulkner's The Sound and the Fury found opened on his coffee table. As the investigation unfolded, authorities sought to reconstruct Thomas Carey's final hours. Utilizing cell tower triangulation, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement established that Carey's phone was last active near Greenfield Park at approximately 10:50 p.m. on June 19, 2023, before disconnecting from the network. The cell phone itself remains unaccounted for, as confirmed by Detective Garza in a press conference held on July 1, 2023. Attention then turned to individuals Thomas Carey had been in contact with socially and professionally. Joel Fisher, interviewed on June 23, 2023, described Carey as reserved but reliable. Fisher mentioned that they had planned a golf outing for the upcoming weekend, a detail corroborated by messages exchanged between the two friends. In an attempt to gather more information, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office established a dedicated tip line, receiving over 200 calls within the first 48 hours of its activation. Despite the influx of information, none of the leads proved fruitful in advancing the investigation. The local media, including the Tampa Bay Times, closely followed the case, publishing several articles detailing Carey's known movements and character. In a piece dated June 28, 2023, journalist Hannah Collins highlighted the puzzling nature of the case, noting its lack of apparent motive or suspect. For a man whose life seemed orderly and routine, the circumstances of his death leave more questions than answers, Collins wrote, citing interviews with Carey's colleagues and friends. As weeks passed, the investigation into Thomas Carey's death remained stagnant. An inquest held in August 2023 reviewed the available evidence, but the presiding magistrate concluded that the cause of death could not be definitively determined. The case, catalogued under file number 7229, remains open and unsolved, with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office urging anyone with information to come forward. Despite exhaustive efforts by law enforcement, the circumstances surrounding Thomas Carey's final night remain a mystery. Investigators continue to piece together his last known movements, seeking the crucial detail that might bring clarity to this unresolved case. On the morning of June 21, 2023, investigators cordoned off a section of Greenfield Park in Hillsborough County, Florida, where the body of Thomas Carey had been discovered. The forensic team from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office arrived promptly, led by forensic specialist Rebecca Linwood. According to the initial crime scene report, the primary objective was to gather all available evidence that could provide insight into Carey's final hours. Carey's body was located under a cluster of oak trees, partially obscured by the dense underbrush. He was wearing a navy blue jacket and a white dress shirt. The forensic team noted the absence of a wallet or any form of identification on his person. However, an empty pill bottle labeled diazepam was found a few feet away from the body. Forensic analysis would later confirm that the bottle contained no remaining residue of its original contents. The initial stages of the investigation unearthed several puzzling elements. No signs of a struggle were evident at the scene, nor were there any obvious defensive wounds on Carey's body. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Miriam Khalid conducted a preliminary external examination, noting the absence of ligature marks or blunt force trauma. The post-mortem analysis would later reveal inconclusive results regarding the cause of death, though traces of diazepam were found in his system. The investigation team, led by Detective Alana Garza, focused on the environmental context. Nearby, they found Carey's shoes, neatly placed side by side, which were collected as evidence. Forensic specialists also recovered a set of partial footprints leading away from the body, although no matching footwear was discovered during a subsequent search of the area. Around the same time, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement began coordinating with local authorities to secure the park perimeter and establish a timeline of events leading up to Carey's death. Surveillance footage from nearby businesses was reviewed, but it offered no conclusive evidence of Carey's movements prior to his demise. Detective Garza, speaking at a press conference on June 23rd, described the footage as inconclusive yet pivotal for mapping out the timeline. Attention soon turned to personal effects that could potentially unveil more about Thomas Carey's activities in the days before his death. A search of his Riverview apartment, authorized under case file 7229, provided limited insight. Investigators found a half-packed suitcase, indicating he might have been planning a trip. A receipt from a local bookstore for a copy of The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner was recovered from the coffee table. This discovery correlated with a library card found in his jacket pocket, which showed a strong interest in Southern Gothic literature. A significant complication emerged when it was discovered that Carey's cell phone was missing. Cell tower triangulation data was later used to track the last known location of the missing device, but it only added to the mystery. The phone's last signal was traced to an area near Elm Street in South Tampa at approximately 11:15 on the evening of June 19th. Despite extensive searches, the phone itself was never recovered. In the days following the discovery, the investigation experienced a series of setbacks. The forensic analysis of the footprints discovered at the park yielded no viable leads, and the partial prints collected were insufficient for comparison. Additionally, DNA samples collected from numerous items at the scene did not match any records in the national database. These challenges were compounded by the absence of eyewitnesses able to provide a reliable account of Carey's movements. Detective Alana Garza initiated an appeal through the Tampa Bay Times, urging anyone with information to come forward. The case drew significant public interest, and the department established a dedicated tip line. Over 400 calls were received in the first 48 hours, but none provided actionable information. Detective Garza acknowledged the difficulty of sifting through the influx of information, stating in an interview with journalist Hannah Collins on June the 28th, "The volume of data is overwhelming, but we are committed to pursuing every lead." One peculiar development emerged when Emily Carey, Thomas's sister, reported receiving a cryptic text message from an unknown number on July 1st. The message read, "He knew too much," and was traced back to an unregistered burner phone. While forensic analysts attempted to track the origins of the device, the lead ultimately went cold. Throughout August 2023, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office continued to explore potential leads and discrepancies in Thomas Carey's case. Detective Garza, along with her team, conducted a thorough review of previous witness statements, reassessing the timeline and evaluating any inconsistencies. Despite their efforts, the case remained unresolved, characterized by a series of unanswered questions and missing pieces. In a final bid to uncover new evidence, the investigative team coordinated with the FBI's local field office, who agreed to review the case under their cold case initiative. This decision, announced in a joint press conference, marked a significant escalation of resources devoted to the investigation, yet it underscored the challenges faced by those seeking answers in the enigmatic death of Thomas Carey. The initial investigation into Thomas Carey's death began with identifying potential suspects and establishing their whereabouts on the night of June 19th, 2023. Detective Alana Garza, lead investigator from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, first turned her attention to those closest to Carey, including his wife, Emily Carey, and his business partner, Joel Fisher. Emily Carey's whereabouts were initially unclear. Later, Detective Garza was able to confirm through several credit card transactions that Emily had been at the Oasis Spa and Salon in Tampa between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., a full 20 miles from Greenfield Park. Surveillance footage further corroborated her presence there, showing Emily entering the spa at 6:08 p.m. and leaving just after 9:15 p.m. She would later provide a receipt from the spa, detailing services she received that evening. Her alibi was considered solid by investigators, and she was not deemed a person of interest. Joel Fisher, on the other hand, presented more complex circumstances. According to Fisher, he had been attending a networking event in South Tampa on the night Thomas Carey disappeared. The event, held at the Bayfront Conference Center, began at 7 p.m. and ended around 10 p.m. Fisher provided the names of several colleagues who could confirm his attendance. However, upon further inspection, none of the confirmed attendees recalled seeing Fisher at the event. Surveillance footage from the conference center initially failed to capture Fisher either entering or exiting the venue. As a result, Detective Garza brought Fisher in for a more thorough interview on June 26, 2023. During the interview, Fisher maintained his initial statement, but his recollections of the event remained vague. He could not recall specific details about the people he interacted with or the topics discussed. A more intensive review of cell tower data eventually placed Fisher's phone near the Bayfront Conference Center between 7:30 and 8:20 p.m., but this conflicted with earlier data that suggested his device had been near Elm Street at around 6:45 p.m., close to the time Carey's phone last sent a signal. Hector Ramirez, the last known person to meet with Carey, was also investigated. Detectives were able to trace Ramirez's movements through GPS data linked to his car, a silver Honda Accord, provided voluntarily by Ramirez himself. The data revealed that Ramirez had left the Rusty Anchor around 9:30 p.m., consistent with his statement. After leaving, he traveled directly to his home on Rivergate Avenue and did not deviate from this route. However, it was noted that Ramirez's phone briefly connected to a cell tower near Elm Street at 9:45 p.m., a detail that intrigued detectives, given the apparent lack of direct roads linking his route home with the location of the tower. Detective Garza also took statements from neighbors and local residents in the vicinity of Greenfield Park and Elm Street. Ellen Whitaker, a resident on Elm Street, reported hearing an argument between two men coming from the direction of Carey's apartment at approximately 8 p.m. Her account was recorded on June the 23rd, 2023, and described a heated exchange, though specific words were indiscernible. Whitaker initially assumed it was merely a domestic dispute and refrained from calling the police. Meanwhile, the investigation turned to potential financial motives. Suncoast Digital Solutions, the firm where Carey worked, had recently secured a lucrative contract with an undisclosed client, reportedly worth several $1 million. Detective Garza, together with forensic accountant Malcolm Hughes, examined the company's financial records for any irregularities. The records revealed that a significant sum, approximately $75,000, had been withdrawn from a corporate account on June the 15th, 4 days before Carey's disappearance. The transaction was authorized under Carey's credentials, but the recipient of the funds remained undisclosed in the initial financial report. Detective Garza obtained a warrant for Suncoast Digital Solutions' internal communications, seeking further insight into the financial dealings. Emails and messages exchanged between Carey and Fisher demonstrated a growing tension regarding company finances, with Carey expressing concerns over unauthorized transactions. According to an email dated June 17th, Carey demanded a meeting to discuss discrepancies and ensure compliance with company protocols. No response from Fisher was found, leading detectives to query whether this financial dispute had escalated. As the investigation progressed, the police received a tip through the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's hotline. An anonymous caller reported seeing a man matching Joel Fisher's description disposing of a large duffel bag into a dumpster near Ybor City's industrial district late on June 19th. Officers dispatched to the area found no such item, as the garbage had already been collected. Nevertheless, this piece of information led authorities to temporarily regard Fisher as a central figure of interest. Despite a multitude of leads, the case encountered several dead ends. By mid-July, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, facing mounting public pressure, held a press conference led by Sheriff Colleen Peters. During her statement, she reiterated calls for public assistance, emphasizing the need for anyone with information about Carey's last known movements or acquaintances to come forward. She acknowledged the complexity of the investigation, but assured the public of the department's commitment to resolving the case. As summer drew to a close, the investigation was officially designated a cold case on August 14, 2023. Thomas Carey's death remained unsolved, with more questions than answers lingering in the aftermath of the investigation that had once seemed poised to unravel the mystery. Detective Alana Garza of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office worked diligently to piece together a timeline of Thomas Carey's last known movements. However, as the investigation progressed, witness testimonies began to diverge, complicating the narrative further. On June 21, 2023, the same day Thomas Carey was found, two park maintenance workers, Carlos Mendoza and Reggie Johnson, reported seeing a man who matched Carey's description walking in Greenfield Park around 5 in the morning. Carlos Mendoza later stated in an interview on July 3, 2023, that the man appeared to be in a hurry, glancing over his shoulder as though he expected someone to follow him. Reggie Johnson, however, recalled that the man, whom he identified from photographs as Thomas Carey, walked at a casual pace, seemingly unaware of his surroundings. These conflicting accounts were not the only discrepancies. On the evening of June 19, 2023, a waitress named Sandra Liu, who worked at the Rusty Anchor, claimed she overheard a heated argument involving a man resembling Thomas Carey. According to her interview with the Tampa Bay Times on July 5, 2023, the argument was about money, but Liu could not identify the other party involved. Her statement introduced an element of financial distress into the investigation, but without corroborating evidence, it remained an unverified lead. Another account emerged from a jogger, Michael Trent, who frequently ran along the path near Harborview Drive. He reported to Detective Garza on July 10, 2023, that he saw a navy blue jacket matching the description of the one Carey was wearing, draped over a park bench around 6 in the morning on June 20, 2023. Trent was unable to recall seeing Thomas Carey himself, but noted the unusual sight of a jacket on a warm June morning. Detective Garza also sought insights from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, who utilized cell tower triangulation data to map Thomas Carey's movements. This data placed him near Ybor City around 8 on the evening of June 19, 2023, contradicting Emily Carey's claim during a formal statement on July 1, 2023, that Thomas was at their Riverview apartment that night. When pressed about this discrepancy, Emily insisted on her initial account, but the triangulation data painted a different picture, suggesting Thomas might have been in Ybor City for reasons unknown at this stage of the investigation. Further complicating the timeline were the observations of Thomas Carey's neighbor, Mrs. Linda Harrington, who reported seeing unfamiliar vehicles parked outside their complex on June 19, 2023. She specifically remembered a black sedan and a red pickup truck. Her statement, provided to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office on July 11, 2023, suggested the possibility of visitors unaccounted for in Emily Carey's narrative. In an effort to corroborate the sightings and accounts, Detective Garza sought surveillance footage from businesses in the vicinity. Footage from a liquor store on Harborview Drive, obtained on July 12, 2023, showed a man resembling Thomas Carey entering the store around 9:30 in the evening on June 19, 2023. The man appeared to be purchasing a bottle of whiskey. The store owner, Mark Rutledge, confirmed to investigators that the bottle in question was a single malt scotch, a detail that Carey's colleagues at Suncoast Digital Solutions later confirmed was his preferred drink. Despite these varied accounts, inconsistencies persisted. According to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's hotline records, a tip received on July 15, 2023, claimed that Thomas Carey was seen arguing with a woman near the Oasis Spa and Salon in Tampa on June 20, 2023. This sighting arose from a customer who wished to remain anonymous, providing no further detail about the woman involved or the content of their argument. As the investigation into Thomas Carey's death stalled, the FBI Cold Case Initiative reviewed the assembled evidence. Agent Charles Underwood, assigned to the case in early August 2023, noted in a press briefing on August 10, 2023, that while multiple leads existed, the lack of a cohesive narrative hindered progress. Underwood stated, "The case remains open with all leads being actively pursued. What we need now are those missing pieces that will fit these varied accounts into a clear picture." In the absence of new evidences, Detective Garza turned her attention to digital forensics, particularly Thomas Carey's missing cell phone. Emily Carey revealed to investigators on August 15, 2023, that Thomas had been protective of his phone in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, often leaving the room to take calls. This new detail prompted further exploration into his call records and social media interactions, but no suspicious activity could be immediately identified by mid-August. As the inquiries continued, reporters from the Tampa Bay Times, notably Hannah Collins, pursued their own investigation into the conflicting accounts. Collins released a detailed article on August 20th, 2023, summarizing the complications investigators faced and urging anyone with additional information to come forward. The case, rife with ambiguities and clashing witness statements, left detectives and the public alike questioning the final hours of Thomas Carey's life and whether the truth would ever come to light. With the investigation at an impasse, the community of Hillsborough County remained on edge, awaiting a resolution that remained elusive. On August 21st, 2023, a significant development occurred in the ongoing investigation of Thomas Carey's death. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous tip through their dedicated hotline, which they had set up shortly after Thomas's body was discovered. This tip claimed that a silver sedan had been parked near Greenfield Park on the night of June 19th, and that a loud altercation could be heard coming from the direction of the vehicle. The caller, who refused to identify themselves, stated that they observed a man matching Thomas Carey's description arguing with an unidentified individual before both got into the car and drove away. Detective Alana Garza, who had been leading the investigation since its inception, was quick to follow up on this new lead. She requested assistance from the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to obtain traffic camera footage from the area surrounding Greenfield Park for the night in question. The footage showed a silver sedan entering the park at approximately 11:45 p.m., just minutes before Thomas was last seen alive. The license plate was partially visible, but the image was too blurry to make a definitive identification. In response to this new information, Detective Garza coordinated with the Hillsborough County DMV to narrow down potential vehicles that matched the partial license plate and vehicle description. This process involved combing through extensive vehicle registration records, an undertaking led by Officer Miguel Serrano, a DMV liaison officer. However, the results were inconclusive, with several possible matches but no definitive leads on the vehicle's owner. Parallel to this line of investigation, forensic analysis continued on the items found at the scene. The forensic team, headed by Dr. Sandra O'Malley, was particularly interested in a watch that was recovered near Thomas Carey's body. The watch, a Casio G-Shock, was water-resistant and had stopped at precisely 12:07 a.m. This timestamp provided a crucial clue, creating a potential timeline for the events that transpired that night. However, the watch did not appear to belong to Thomas, as his family confirmed he never wore that model. Additionally, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's crime lab conducted a thorough analysis of the fibers found on Thomas Carey's clothing. These fibers were determined to be consistent with those from a car interior, suggesting Thomas had been in a vehicle shortly before his death. Despite this finding, the origin of the fibers could not be traced to any specific manufacturer, leaving investigators with little means to identify a suspect vehicle. Meanwhile, on September 2nd, 2023, the Tampa Bay Times reported that a new witness had come forward. A local resident, Jenna Morales, claimed in an interview with journalist Hannah Collins that she had seen Thomas Carey at a diner called The Blue Plate in South Tampa on the evening of June 19th. Jenna described Thomas as appearing agitated and in the company of another man she did not recognize. She recalled that the two men were engaged in a heated discussion, although she could not hear what was being said. Detective Garza sought to verify Jenna's account by obtaining CCTV footage from the diner. However, the footage for that evening had been overwritten, leaving investigators unable to confirm her story. The investigation encountered further challenges as procedural hurdles arose. The Hillsborough County Court was initially unable to grant a warrant for phone records of potential suspects associated with the anonymous tips due to insufficient probable cause. This legal setback hindered investigators' ability to cross-reference the partial license plate number with phone records, a crucial step that could have potentially identified individuals linked to the silver sedan. In an effort to maintain momentum, Detective Garza turned her attention to Thomas Carey's workplace, Suncoast Digital Solutions, hoping to uncover any interpersonal conflicts or hidden tensions that might offer a motive for foul play. Interviews with colleagues, conducted by Officer Lydia Tran, revealed that Thomas was well-liked and not involved in any apparent disputes. Nonetheless, one colleague, Brian McAllister, mentioned that Thomas had been uncharacteristically withdrawn in the weeks leading up to his death, though no one seemed to know why. As the investigation continued into late September, the public's interest in the case surged once more. On September the 15th, 2023, a community vigil was held at Greenfield Park to honor Thomas Carey and appeal for any additional information that might help solve the case. Emily Carey, Thomas's sister, addressed the attendees, urging anyone with knowledge of the events leading to her brother's death to come forward. Her plea was covered by local news outlets, amplifying the call for new witnesses or leads. Despite these efforts, the investigation remained at an impasse. The evidence, while intriguing, failed to coalesce into a comprehensive narrative explaining how Thomas Carey met his death in Greenfield Park. The case, marked as file number 7229, remained open but unsolved. Detective Garza and her team continued to pursue every lead, but each path seemed to end in ambiguity. As autumn approached, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office renewed their commitment to finding answers, but with each passing week, the trail grew colder. The mystery surrounding Thomas Carey's death persisted, a complex puzzle compounded by procedural challenges and elusive evidence. On October 12, 2023, Thomas Carey's case, previously cold, saw an unexpected resurgence in activity. According to Detective Alana Garza's updated report, a new lead emerged from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. The lead came via an email sent to the dedicated tip line, claiming to provide crucial information about Carey's activities on the night of June 19, 2023. The sender, identified only as J.K., stated that Carey was seen in the company of an unknown individual at a late-night diner in Ybor City just hours before his disappearance. Follow-up with the diner, identified as the Midnight Grill on East 7th Avenue, confirmed a transaction on Carey's credit card at 11:47 p.m., suggesting he was indeed present. Detective Garza, in coordination with Officer Miguel Serrano, reviewed surveillance footage from the Midnight Grill. The footage, however, proved inconclusive. While it captured Carey exiting the diner, the details of his companion's appearance were obscured by poor lighting and the angle of the camera. The investigation team was unable to identify the individual, though they noted a distinctive tattoo on the person's forearm, which was partially visible in the footage. This tattoo would later become a focal point in attempts to identify potential suspects. On October 15, 2023, Emily Carey, Thomas's sister, provided a statement to the Tampa Bay Times, urging anyone with information about the tattoo to come forward. "It's been months," she was quoted as saying. "We need closure, and every piece of information could be vital." This call to action saw an increase in engagement with the case, with the tip line receiving over 50 new submissions within 24 hours, the majority of which were ultimately not actionable. Meanwhile, forensic analysis of Carey's belongings, conducted by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, yielded new insights. A detailed examination of the Casio G-Shock watch found at the scene revealed traces of a substance consistent with lithium. According to Dr. Miriam Khalid, who examined the watch, the presence of lithium, a component not typical in such devices, suggests potential tampering or an attempt to conceal additional means of contact. This finding introduced a new line of inquiry regarding possible electronic interference or tracking. At the same time, Detective Garza and her team turned their attention to the initial break-in reported at Elm Street. Although previously deemed unrelated, recent developments prompted a re-investigation of any connections between the break-in and Carey's case. Interviews with Linda Harrington, the Elm Street resident who reported the incident, were revisited. Harrington recalled hearing muffled voices and a series of dull thuds on the night of the break-in. Subsequent sound analysis by forensic acoustics specialists suggested the noises were consistent with a struggle rather than a mere property crime, thus deepening the mystery around Carey's death. An unexpected development arose on October 18, 2023, when a former colleague of Carey's, identified as Malcolm Hughes, came forward with new information. Hughes, during an interview with Detective Garza, claimed that Carey had expressed concerns about being followed in the weeks leading up to his disappearance. Specifically, Carey mentioned a grey sedan he frequently spotted near his Riverview apartment and at his workplace, Suncoast Digital Solutions. Hughes's statement prompted a search of traffic camera footage from the areas mentioned, though results were pending at the time of the report. On October 21, 2023, an inquest was convened to reassess Carey's cause of death, previously labeled as undetermined. The inquest, held at the Hillsborough County Courthouse, sought to establish a more definitive cause based on emerging evidence, including toxicology reports and witness accounts. Dr. Sandra O'Malley, a forensic toxicologist, presented findings from an advanced panel test which identified trace amounts of several compounds, including diazepam and a second unidentified substance. This revelation added complexity to the investigation, suggesting the possibility of foul play involving multiple substances. Meanwhile, a parallel investigation by the FBI's Tampa field office reviewed the potential for interstate involvement given the unexplained elements surrounding Carey's last days. Agents focused on Carey's connections outside Florida and any communications that might indicate cross-state activities or threats. The review included Carey's phone records, emails, and correspondence from his professional and personal life. As of late October, the FBI's investigation remained ongoing, with no public disclosures regarding their findings. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office continued to work closely with federal and state agencies, pooling resources in an effort to piece together the fragmented evidence. Sheriff Colleen Peters, in an October 25, 2023 press conference, acknowledged the challenges faced by investigators but emphasized the commitment to uncovering the truth. "Every lead, no matter how small, is significant," she stated, echoing her earlier sentiments from August. "The investigation is dynamic, and we remain hopeful for a resolution." Yet, as October drew to a close, the case remained unresolved. Despite the renewed interest and influx of information, the investigation faced an uphill battle against the constraints of time and the limitations of tangible evidence. The precise sequence of events leading to Thomas Carey's death, and the ultimate aim of those involved, continued to elude authorities. The collective efforts of dedicated detectives, forensic analysts, and the support of Carey's family and community kept the case alive, each new development a potential key to unlocking the mystery. On October the 29th, 2023, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office received an anonymous tip. The caller claimed to have information regarding Thomas Carey's activities on the evening of June the 19th, 2023. The tipster, who identified themselves only as a former acquaintance, suggested that Thomas had been seen arguing with an unidentified man at the Midnight Grill on East 7th Avenue in Ybor City shortly after 10 that evening. According to the caller, the confrontation escalated and Thomas was observed leaving the premises with the individual. Detective Alana Garza, who had been leading the investigation, considered this tip crucial, especially given the lack of concrete leads following the initial inquiry. 3 days later, a Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office investigator visited the Midnight Grill. The establishment had voluntary surveillance footage from a camera located near the entrance. However, the footage from June 19th had been routinely overwritten as part of their weekly cycle. In a follow-up interview conducted on November the 3rd, 2023, the restaurant's manager, Stephen Langston, confirmed that he had recognized Thomas as a frequent patron but could not recall any significant altercations on that particular evening. Langston's statement added a layer of ambiguity to the anonymous tip, as no other witnesses had come forward. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office then focused on identifying the mysterious man described by the tipster. Detective Garza initiated a request for information from local residents and businesses who might have seen Thomas on the night in question. On November 10th, a local resident, Claudia Jansen, contacted the office. She claimed to have seen an individual matching Thomas's description in the vicinity of East 7th Avenue around 10:30 on the night of June 19th. Jansen noted that Thomas appeared agitated and was speaking animatedly with a man she described as middle-aged, wearing a grey hoodie. Her observations, however, lacked specificity regarding the man's identity. In an effort to corroborate the sequence of events, Detective Garza sought assistance from the FBI's Tampa field office. By mid-November, agents began examining cell tower data to map Thomas Carey's movements on the night of June the 19th. Preliminary analysis indicated that Thomas's cell phone had indeed connected to a tower near Ybor City between 9:30 and 11 that evening, aligning with the tipster's timeline. However, the lack of video evidence meant that the investigation remained speculative regarding the nature of his interactions. During a press conference held on November the 25th, 2023, Sheriff Colleen Peters acknowledged the ongoing efforts to gather more information. She urged anyone who might have been in the area on the night of June 19th to contact the department's tip line. Despite the public appeal, the line received few actionable leads in the following weeks. Another angle pursued by investigators involved Thomas's professional life. On December 2nd, 2023, a former colleague from Suncoast Digital Solutions, Marcus Green, came forward. Green claimed that Thomas had expressed concerns about an unnamed client who had been unsatisfied with their marketing services. According to Green, Thomas mentioned feeling uneasy about the client's insistence on a private meeting scheduled for June 19th. However, Thomas had not disclosed specific details regarding the client's identity or the nature of their grievances. With the investigation stalling, forensic experts revisited the initial findings from Thomas Carey's autopsy. Dr. Miriam Khalid's team conducted an additional toxicology screening in late December. The results indicated the presence of trace amounts of an unidentified chemical compound, previously undetected in the initial examination. Although the relevance of this finding remained unclear, it prompted Dr. Khalid to question whether Thomas had been exposed to the substance in the days leading up to June 21st. As the year drew to a close, Detective Garza convened a review meeting with her team on December 28, 2023. The meeting, documented in internal memos, highlighted the unresolved nature of the case. Discussions focused on potential links between Thomas's professional contacts, the anonymous tip, and the mysterious chemical compound discovered in his system. However, no definitive conclusions emerged. Further complicating matters, Thomas's missing cell phone remained unaccounted for. On January the 5th, 2024, a Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office intern, Maria Espinoza, conducted a thorough review of pawn shop records in and around Tampa. Her investigation uncovered a Casio G-Shock watch sold on June 25, 2023, which matched the description of one Thomas was known to wear. The watch, however, did not yield any additional clues regarding its acquisition or sale. Despite the ongoing challenges, the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office maintained its commitment to solving Thomas Carey's case. As of early 2024, leads continued to trickle in, albeit slowly. The case, designated under file number 7229, remained open, with Detective Garza and her team determined to unravel the mysteries surrounding Thomas's last known movements, the enigmatic chemical compound, and the identity of the man seen with him on the night of June 19th. In the days following the formal suspension of the investigation into Thomas Carey's death, the local community of Riverview, Hillsborough County, sought to find ways to cope with the unresolved case. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office confirmed that all active leads had been exhausted as of January the 15th, 2024. The sense of unease within the community was palpable, with many residents expressing their concerns through local outlets like the Riverview Gazette. According to a piece published by the Gazette on January the 22nd, 2024, a growing number of locals began to question the handling of the investigation. Claire Dunlop, editor of the Gazette, noted in a phone interview, "There's a feeling that not all stones have been turned. People want answers, and there's a community-wide rallying for transparency." The rally she referenced was organized by the Riverview Community Safety Alliance and took place on February the 2nd, drawing nearly 300 residents to Booker Park. At the rally, Emily Carey, Thomas's sister, addressed the crowd. Her voice, recorded by local freelance journalist Roger Chen, quivered with emotion. "My brother's life mattered," she stated. "We need to stand together to find the truth." Emily's plea was met with resounding applause, highlighting the community's shared commitment to seek justice on behalf of Thomas. The community's upheaval prompted an editorial in the Tampa Bay Times on February 4th, reflecting on the complexities of the cold case. The editorial underscored the challenges faced by law enforcement when leads dry up. Detective Alana Garza, who had led the investigation, was quoted, having stated in her last public statement before the case went cold, "Every lead is a hope. When that hope fades, it affects us all." The Times reported that Detective Garza requested reassignment, citing the need for distance after what had been an exhaustive and emotionally taxing endeavor. Meanwhile, Hillsborough County Commissioner Douglas Park reached out to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement on February 9, 2024, urging for a comprehensive review of the case materials. Commissioner Park, in an official letter obtained by The Times, argued that an external review might offer fresh perspectives. The proposal, however, faced bureaucratic hurdles. The department responded, expressing procedural concerns due to the case's open status, albeit suspended. Adding another layer to the unfolding events, Emily Carey initiated an online petition on February the 14th, calling for the reopening of the investigation. The petition quickly garnered attention, amassing over 5,000 signatures in its first week. Emily hoped this public pressure would reignite interest at the state level. "We can't let this be forgotten," she wrote in the petition's description, which urged supporters to share their own stories of loss and resolution. Local businesses also chipped in to support the cause. A benefit concert took place at the Bayfront Conference Center on February the 24th, featuring local bands. Organizers reported that proceeds from the event would go to the Thomas Carey Memorial Fund, dedicated to supporting cold case investigations in Florida. According to Sarah Neal, one of the event coordinators, the turnout was beyond our expectations. Musicians, vendors, and residents all wanted to do their part. Yet even as momentum built among civilians, official paths remained stagnant. Sheriff Colleen Peters, addressing the media on February the 27th, reiterated the limitations faced without new evidence, stating, "While community efforts are invaluable, reopening a case requires substantial new information that we've, unfortunately, not yet received." As the weeks progressed, private investigator Lucas Grant, hired by the Carey family, began delving into the case unofficially. Grant, a former detective with over 20 years of experience, was contacted by Emily in hopes of uncovering overlooked details. In a conversation with the Riverview Gazette, Grant mentioned that his initial findings pointed to inconsistencies in witness statements from June 19th, emphasizing the importance of revisiting every minute detail. While Grant's investigation was ongoing, the community continued its advocacy through various campaigns. On March 5th, a candlelight vigil was held at Greenfield Park, marking 9 months since Thomas's body was discovered. Reverend Miriam Ackerman of the First Methodist Church of Riverview led the gathering, calling for healing and unity. A memorial stone was installed near the park's entrance reading, "In memory of Thomas Carey, forever in our hearts." Despite these efforts, the sense of an unfinished narrative lingered heavily. Residents frequently reached out to media outlets, maintaining a steady stream of letters and opinion pieces. The Tampa Bay Times reported a noticeable increase in public engagement with stories regarding unsolved crimes, suggesting a heightened community interest in seeking closure. Both the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement acknowledged the public's concern. By March 15th, the Sheriff's Office announced a new task force focusing on procedural reviews of cold cases, although it stopped short of committing to a full reinvestigation of Thomas Carey's case specifically. As winter turned to spring, the Carey family and their supporters remained steadfast. Emily Carey, in an interview with Jenna Morales of the Tampa Bay Times on March 20th, expressed a cautious optimism. "Community goes beyond borders. It's not just about the answers. It's about the people who refuse to accept none," she said. Her words resonated deeply with a community that continued to rally around the cause, unwilling to let Thomas Carey's memory fade into obscurity. By January 24th of 2024, the investigation into the death of Thomas Carey had been officially suspended, a decision that left many within the Riverview community and beyond in disbelief. Despite the volumes of files collected by the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office and the involvement of multiple agencies, no definitive answers had emerged. Detective Alana Garza, who was the lead investigator from the onset, was reassigned to another case, leaving many questions about Thomas Carey's untimely death unanswered. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office stated in a press release that the investigation could be reopened should new evidence come to light. However, this announcement did little to assuage the public's concern. Emily Carey, Thomas's sister, expressed her frustration in a statement to the Tampa Bay Times, describing the situation as unbearably painful, with no closure in sight. She continued to advocate for justice, maintaining a persistent presence in the media to keep her brother's case in the public eye. On February 2nd, 2024, a rally organized by the Riverview Community Safety Alliance drew a substantial crowd. The event, held in front of the Hillsborough County Courthouse, featured several speakers, including Claire Dunlop, a community activist who had been vocal about the case since its inception. Dunlop highlighted the gaps in the investigation, calling for the formation of an independent review board to examine the handling of the case. The editorial section of the Tampa Bay Times published an article on February 4th, taking a critical stance on the suspension of the investigation. The editorial board questioned whether all potential leads had been exhausted and suggested that local and state law enforcement agencies could benefit from a renewed collaboration to solve the case. Detective Garza's last official statement on the case, delivered during a press conference on February 9th, reiterated her commitment to finding the truth, despite her reassignment. She highlighted the ongoing efforts of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to analyze forensic evidence that had been overlooked or re-evaluated with new techniques. Specifically, DNA samples collected from the scene were being subjected to advanced testing methods that had not been available initially. On February 14th, an online petition was launched demanding the reopening of the case and the allocation of more resources to solve it. The petition quickly garnered over 10,000 signatures, reflecting widespread public interest and concern. Among the signatories were several high-profile individuals from the Riverview area, including Lucas Grant, a prominent local entrepreneur. A concert held at the Bayfront Conference Center on February 24th served as both a fundraiser and a memorial for Thomas Carey. Several local musicians performed, with all proceeds directed towards funding private investigative efforts initiated by the Carey family. Reverend Miriam Ackerman, a close family friend, spoke at the event, emphasizing the importance of community support in seeking justice. A vigil was organized at Greenfield Park on March 5th, where Thomas Carey was discovered the previous year. Participants gathered to place flowers and light candles near a memorial stone dedicated to his memory. Emily Carey addressed the crowd, sharing personal anecdotes about her brother and reaffirming her determination to uncover the truth. On March 15th, a task force was officially formed, consisting of volunteers, former law enforcement officials, and private investigators. Jenna Morales, a seasoned investigator with extensive experience in unsolved cases, was appointed as the head of this initiative. Morales, speaking during a press conference on March 20th, vowed to pursue every lead and promised transparency in the investigation process. Despite these efforts, the investigation remains unresolved. The task force reported some progress, including the re-evaluation of witness statements and the collection of additional testimonies from individuals who had not been previously interviewed. One such witness, Charles Underwood, came forward claiming to have seen Thomas in the company of an unknown individual just days before his death. His account, however, has yet to be corroborated. Speculation continues to circulate about the potential involvement of unidentified parties and the possibility of a larger conspiracy. Yet, without concrete evidence, these remain theories. Detective Garza's notes reference several avenues of inquiry that were never fully explored, including the activities of Thomas's professional associates in the days preceding his death. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office maintains an open file on the case, denoted 7229, signifying its status as an unsolved mystery. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement periodically reviews the case, particularly in light of new technological advancements that could offer fresh insights into existing evidence. As of now, The death of Thomas Carey is a case that stands at the crossroads of official procedure and public demand for resolution. It is a reminder of the complexities involved in criminal investigations, where even the most straightforward cases can unravel into a web of unanswered questions. For Emily Carey, the journey is far from over as she continues her pursuit for answers, unwilling to let her brother's memory fade into obscurity. Her resolve serves as a catalyst for the ongoing dialogue about justice and accountability within the community and beyond. The case remains open, a testament to both the challenges and the unwavering hope that one day the truth will be revealed.